Hanwo, already cool. Beyond the blue railing, woven blinds hang. A red screen embroidered with broken willows. On 8-foot dragon beard mats, a square brocade cushion. The weather is already cool, but it is still too soon for cold. So we continue with late Tang poems and poets. This is a quatrain by Han Wo, and this is the first and only contribution of his to this anthology. So it's appropriate for us to tell a little bit about his biography. He is in many respects similar to the previous day's poet, Zhang Tian. Zhang Tian was a relatively high-serving poet during Emperor Shizong's reign. Han Wo was also an important figure in Emperor Chaozong's reign. Emperor Chaozong was the last, to all practical effects and purposes, the last emperor of the Tang dynasty. There would still be another one, but he would be a complete puppet in the hands of a general. So Han Wo was born in 842, a native of the capital, and the famous poet Li Shangjing was actually his brother-in-law and was alleged to have recognized Han Wo's poetic talents while he was still a child. He passed the Jinshi in 889, and he was initially appointed Hanlin academician and left reminder in the Secretariat Chancellery, then later as a bureau director in the Ministry of Personnel. By 901, he was secretariat drafter and recipient of edicts, and he was very close to the emperor, the Chaozong emperor, who reigned from 889 to 905, and a strong and vocal opponent of the eunuchs who were in control of the court. The emperor, hoping to weaken the eunuchs, repeatedly asked Han Wo to become a grand counselor and head the administration. Each time he refused. In 903, his rival Zhu Chuanzhong, who would eventually depose the Tang, had him demoted to a provincial post in Shu. In 905 he was restored to his rank and position, but he did not return to the capital to take them up, fearing it was a pretext to have him assassinated. He remained in the south as a private citizen, probably died around 914. So basically exiled himself to the region of Min in the extreme southeast coast of China, and there he remained until the end. So Han Wo is famous for two collections of poems of him that have been preserved. The two collections are extremely different. So one of the collections includes poems in the style of the typical scholar official lamenting living in unfortunate times. The other collection, which is actually the one that has had the greatest influence, something like the Perfumed Bureau collection, is a series of poems very much in the style that would later become prevalent in the Five Dynasties and the early Song. This sort of erotic, decadent, highly evocative, sensual type of poetry that would be roundly censured by the Confucians as improper, as the songs of a state that is being destroyed, as decadent poetry. Now, this poem, Already Cool, that is presented today, belongs, I believe, to this last type of poetry. So the topic of the poem is one that we've encountered time and time again in this collection. It's the beautiful woman of an aristocratic background who is languishing, who is pining away, awaiting for the return of her beloved. The season, it's not very clearly indicated, but it's probably autumn. And so the sad season that makes people think of decline, physical decline of how one's autumn is approaching and how one's youth and beauty are being unfulfilled, unsatisfied by being with one's ideal couple. But one very interesting thing from this poem that will be taken on by those continuators, as we've mentioned, in the Five Dynasties and the early Song period, is aspects of technique. So one curious element of this poem is that, as opposed to most of the poems of this sort, neither the woman nor her lover are actually presented in the poem. So this is a bit like one of those one-way impersonal poems in which nature is depicted but nobody seems to be there. So here we get the depiction of some lovely quarters in which the lady dwells, but neither the lady is seen, and neither are her feelings or thoughts explicitly stated. So this is a very indirect poem which tries to achieve the creation of feeling and of emotion through the depiction of apparently objective objects that surround the space. So that's quite interesting. Let's take a look at how it goes. So first of all, the poem works a little bit as a zoom-in shot in cinema, because it starts from the outside, it takes us inside the chambers, it takes us to the bed, but we never actually get to see anything but objects. So first couplet. Beyond the blue railing, woven blinds hang. A red screen embroidered with broken willows. So we start with objects, as we say, and the second couplet will also start with an object. So in the first line we get two objects. So there is a blue railing, actually blue or green, I think the same word is employed in Chinese, or at least it was employed in Chinese at the time. So we're meant to imagine a railing, a balustrade, locking or separating the apartments that are being referred to in their outside. It is a shiny green. This poem has been praised for the intensity of its color. And this blue railing is covered by woven blinds. So the blinds are down, so no view is allowed to the inside. I was a little bit confused at this because I wasn't sure, where are the blinds? Are the blinds inside the railing or outside the railing? From a few other commentaries that I've seen in online and some translations, not translations, but well, I did some translations of a Chinese article through Google Translate, which is not the best of tools. But anyway, through those tools, the idea that I got was that the woven blinds are inside the blue the blue railing. Yeah, so they're blocking the view from outside to inside. And then we get another object, and we don't, it's a bit of a disembodied object. Where is this object supposed to be? A red screen embroidered with broken willows. Again, screens were used a lot in Chinese and also in traditional Japanese households. They didn't have that much furniture, especially at this time. And big inner spaces were generally partitioned through screens. So we might imagine that our disembodied consciousness has been able to bypass the woven blinds behind the blue railing, but yet we find another obstacle to our view, and this time the first color of the first line is green, blue-green. Here it's red. So we have a red screen, and the red screen is embroidered with broken willows. Now, the image of the broken willows embroidered in the screen is not innocent at all, because willows, as we've also seen in a lot of the poems that we've read before, I think, willows are a typical Chinese symbol for love and for separation of lovers. And I think there was a tradition to give small willow branches to lovers or to friends who were going far away. Also, willows denote the spring, the renewal. So these broken willows are probably a symbol. They're probably meant to depict the feelings of the person who lives within these luxurious and colorful quarters. They're meant to connote the desire of love or of joining with the loved one. Probably broken. The willows are broken, so probably this also transmits the idea that these feelings of the resident are broken and are frustrated. Second couplet. So we have three objects in the first line: a blue railing, woven blinds, and a red screen. In the second couplet, we get two other objects in the first line, and then a reflection about the weather, which is not tied to any object, but which might be felt by the disembodied protagonist of this poem. So, on 8-foot dragon-beard mats, a square brocade cushion. The weather is already cool, but it is still too soon for cold. So again, we move through the partition, we move through and beyond the red screen, and we get to the sancta sanctorum, to the innermost space, which is the bed. So we have, the bed is not directly stated, but these 8-foot dragon beard mats are meant to be on top of the bed. They were called like that, dragon beard, because they were made from rushes that grew along riverbanks. And so we have these long mats, and we have a beautiful square brocade cushion, again standing in. It's a luxury item for relaxing on, but also acts in a way as a stand-in, either for the protagonist or probably for the protagonist, for the woman who is languishing, like the cushion. And finally, the last line moves us away from objects, and it takes us into the seasonal temperature. But again, this seemingly innocent comment on the weather is again interspersed with connotations. So the weather is already cool, but it is still too soon for cold. So we are in a seasonal period of change. It's cool, but not too cool. We might imagine that probably sets the poem in autumn, perhaps at night. And it's not yet too cool. Might that be a metaphor for the fact that the woman who is probably languishing, still has feelings for her beloved, even though time has passed without seeing him? Or maybe she's still beautiful, even though the autumn of her years is already setting in. Well, probably both are possible interpretations. Anyway, this poem is allegedly one of Han Wo's most famous, and you can see how carefully and how indirectly it depicts rather, on the other hand, a rather conventional trope and scene that we've seen in Chinese poetry up to now.